So who's one player from every championship club that deserves an upgrade going into FIFA 22? Let's find out. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. As always, if you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. If we could hit 300 likes on today's video, that would be massively appreciated. But today we're going to be going over every championship club, and I'm going to be giving you one suggestion for who I think deserves an upgrade going into FIFA 22. Now, obviously, this needs to be a player who, first of all, played well last season and warrants that upgrade, but also is a little bit underrated already on this previous generation of FIFA. Get your suggestions down below, but without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Starting out with Barnsley, that goes to Callum Styles. Now, not only is he due an upgrade going into next year's FIFA, he's also potentially in line for a position change. I've changed him from a centre mid into a left wing back, which is where he's probably played the majority of this last season, just gone by for Barnsley, but he really epitomises this pressing system that Barnsley go with. He's an absolute bundle of energy and has quality at both ends of the pitch. Scored 4 goals, got 3 assists this season. Brilliant at the other side of the game as well, and has picked up 6 Man of the Match awards as the season has gone on, so I think more than deserving of quite the upgrade going into next year's FIFA. Now, Birmingham was a bit of a tough one. In the end, I've gone for Mark Roberts, who I've decided to upgrade by +1. If you look at the majority of the Birmingham squad and their ratings already on FIFA, I think they're pretty much a fair reflection of where this Birmingham squad probably is at this point in time. If I had to pick out one, probably more of their consistent performers over this past season just gone by, and it has been a bit of a topsy-turvy one for Birmingham, Mark Roberts was one name who kept popping up in the sort of lists that I was doing, and so maybe he's due a slight upgrade going into next season. I bumped him up by 1. When it comes to Blackburn, of course, we're going for Adam Armstrong. Now, whether he'll actually be at Blackburn come FIFA 22 is another question entirely, but in terms of his rating going into the next FIFA, I think he warrants a gold card now after the season he's just had, and his season probably has gone a little bit more under the radar because of, you know, the records that Ivan Toney's been breaking in the Championship this season, but Armstrong and his contribution to this Blackburn side shouldn't be forgotten about. 28 goals this season, 5 assists. He's absolutely rapid at getting in behind and dropping his shoulder, got that low centre of gravity which works to his advantage, and I actually think he'd be quite an effective player in the Premier League. With Blackpool, there was a few that I could have gone with, but I think that Jerry Yates here is probably the obvious choice, as he's currently a bronze player on FIFA. He's more than deserving of that upgrade now to a silver card after scoring 21 goals and picking up 8 assists this season, just gone by for Blackpool. He turned out to be a wonderful purchase in the end from Rotherham United, where things just weren't quite happening for him at the time. Neil Critchley certainly found the formula to get the best out of him, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes on and kicks on in the Championship next year. When it comes to Bournemouth, the player that sprung out to me was probably Lloyd Kelly, who was already a little bit underrated as ratings go on FIFA, only being at 69 this year, just gone by. Obviously, in that playoff semi-final second leg against Brentford, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory in that game, but despite that, I think he's had a pretty solid season that's just gone by. Obviously, he could either play as that left back or in the middle as a centre half. I think he deserves to be bumped up a few ratings. Obviously, Danjuma is another obvious call, but he's already fairly highly rated on FIFA. Bristol City, I've gone for Anthony Semenyo, although he's not maybe had the greatest of seasons in terms of, you know, completely goal output. I think he scored 2 goals and got 4 assists this season. In terms of a bit more of a live spot going forward for Bristol City and a positive influence who tries to at least get the ball and take on people, I think that Bristol City pinned a lot of their hopes on Semenyo sort of doing that in this season just gone by. He completed more dribbles in that Bristol City squad than any other player this season. Successful dribbles for Semenyo this season. He completed 48. The player that's closest to him after that is Casey Palmer with 35, so he was way out ahead in that regard. And he's also a very young player who's only going to go on and get better. When it comes to Cardiff, we're going for Kiefer Moore, not only a key man for Cardiff, but now for Wales as well in the Euro matches that we've had already. Kiefer Moore is one of my personal favourite strikers in the league at the moment, and he's certainly someone who's maybe gone a little bit under the radar this season because of Ivan Toney and him grabbing a lot of the headlines. If Moore didn't get injured at that point of the season where he did, he seriously could have been right up there in terms of like contention for the Golden Boot and stuff like that, because there are parts of the season where he was absolutely flying, and he is almost a complete striker, to be honest with you. You know, he's fast enough to make those runs in behind. He's got that physicality about him. He's also good on the ball. He's brilliant at winning aerial duels. He's got it absolutely all going his way. And I think that this season for Cardiff especially, it really clicked for him. For Coventry, now the obvious choice would be Gustavo Hamer, but I personally have gone with Callum O'Hare. I think that he's certainly in need of a little bit of recognition for this season just gone by for Coventry. I really like his style of play. He's quite an intense player actually. He's played all over the pitch for Coventry, but primarily in that number 10 position. He's got 3 goals and 8 assists for himself, so he's a real asset for Coventry on the ball. But not just that, it's the work he does off the ball as well. He sort of sets the tempo for the pressures that Coventry do going forward. He averages 2 tackles per 90, which is really impressive for sort of a traditional number 10. Really enjoyed watching him in this season just gone by, and he alongside Gustavo Hamer have been two of my favourites to watch this season. When it comes to Derby County, I mean, I was scraping the barrel in terms of an upgrade. I think that Christian Bielik, of all people, despite only being fit for about 1 month of this season, is probably the Derby player that's most in line for an upgrade going into this next FIFA. 70 rated for Christian Bielik, by the way, is criminally underrated for a player of his talents. He's probably only that rated because of the injuries that he suffered recently. You know, he's not got exactly the most opportunities to really showcase how good he can actually be, but in that brief moment of this season when he was fully fit, Derby were absolutely flying in the league at that point. He was the player in midfield who was completely holding things down, and I just love him to get a full season where he's completely injury free, because I think it would be quite a special one. When it comes to Fulham, I've gone for Harrison Reed. He's a player who I've liked for quite some time now, and I think that he's one of the few players from that promotion squad from the Championship that at least sort of stepped up to the plate for Fulham last season, if that makes sense. I think that a lot of the other people were sort of left behind at different stages of that Premier League season that Fulham have just had, even Mitrovic at times. Harrison Reed, though, very busy midfielder and probably one of the more underrated players maybe from that season just gone by. For Huddersfield, we are of course going for Josh Koroma. He's only 59 rated on FIFA 21. He deserves a massive boost to that heading into FIFA 22. I think he deserves to be at least 70 rated. I think that the level of performances that we've seen from Huddersfield this season with and without Koroma in the squad are completely night and day. We saw it towards the end of the season when he managed to get himself back from that injury. They look so much more threatening going forward, and he's going to be another one of their crucial players going into next season. Hull City, I'm going for George Honeyman. When we talk about people who really step up and take a bit of responsibility after a relegation and put it on their shoulders to go ahead and spearhead a promotion charge, George Honeyman's done just that in this season just gone by for Hull. It's up to him now to adapt his game to Championship level, where we've not really seen the best of him so far. You know, that first season he had at Hull couldn't quite cut it there. A lot of his minutes came off the bench with Sunderland. Obviously he was in a tough environment there, but he's not a young player anymore. You know, he's now 26 years old, so this is the time for him to really step up to Championship level. But for this season just gone by, more than deserving of an upgrade. For Luton Town, I've gone for Elijah Adebayo. I think that especially now with James Collins departing, there's going to be even more emphasis on Adebayo heading into next season. Obviously he arrived in January and did really well for Luton actually in the second half of this season, averaging about a goal or so every 3 matches for them. It's another example of the sort of sensible recruitment that we've seen from Luton over the last couple of years, and yeah, I think he's going to go on and be even better for them next season. For Middlesbrough, we are going for Mark Bowler. Definitely has a stake to be one of the most improved players that we've seen in the Championship in this last season. I thought he was absolutely excellent for Middlesbrough, especially taking into consideration his first season at Borough the year before that. He just didn't quite look like he was ready for Championship football. He only made a handful of appearances for them after making the move over from Blackpool. He was eventually loaned out for the second half of that season. He came back and was integrated back into this Borough first team for this season, and they've really reaped the benefits of that because I think he's been absolutely excellent. When it comes to Millwall, Billy Mitchell is the man going into next season. I've given him an upgrade of +11. I think he deserves to be a silver card coming into FIFA 22. We saw more and more of him towards the end of the season for Millwall, and he, alongside a few other players who they got coming up through their ranks at the moment, are reason for a bit of optimism at Millwall at the moment actually, because Billy Mitchell is a player who's certainly going places. When it comes to Nottingham Forest, for me, Brennan Johnson is the man, and I really hope he gets a consistent run of games in that Forest squad going into next season. He's coming off the back of an excellent season with Lincoln in League One. Obviously, they weren't successful in the playoff final, but he himself was absolutely pivotal on the run they went on. 13 goals, 5 assists for him in all comps. You know, we sort of saw Forest really stuttering at times in terms of that lack of creativity within that team. You know, at times they had sort of Luke Freeman dropped in there, that low move didn't really work out. Well, they've got a ready-made player who's coming back to Forest this season in the mould of Brennan Johnson, and after absolutely steaming it at League One level last time round, he's more than ready for that step up now to the Championship. Peterborough United, of course, we're going for star striker Johnson Clark-Harris, coming off the back of his most prolific season to date, scoring 33 goals in all competitions. He's already grabbed several headlines headlines in terms of the transfer rumours linking them away to different clubs and things like that. Peterborough have obviously got the choice with what they want to do with the striker. Do they cash in on him now, or do they continue to build the side around him? Both probably have their positives and negatives. That's something that they're going to have to weigh up over this summer. Preston North End, I'm going for Ryan Ledson, my personal player of the year, just gone by for Preston, and certainly in need of an upgrade heading into the next FIFA. Not just the defensive side of Ledson's game, which has really impressed me this season, but more so the offensive side of it. In terms of key passes for North End this season, breaking those lines, looking for those forward passes, Ryan Ledson's been absolutely brilliant, and I think that was one aspect of his game when he originally came to Preston where he was probably a little bit limited. You know, he liked to keep things a little bit safe and tidy, you know, sideways and backwards, stuff like that. I think that playing alongside and training with Ben Pearson, I think has really helped Ledson along the way, and now that he's stepped away, although they are different players, I certainly can see the elements of Pearson's game that Ledson has taken into his own. And for me at North End at the moment, he's one of the first names on the team sheet. For QPR, we're going for goalkeeper Seny Dieng. Can you believe it? He was only 63 rated on FIFA 21. He deserves a massive boost going into FIFA 22. I know that he had a couple of dodgy moments towards the end of the season. I think that every goalkeeper probably goes through having those moments at some stage, but by far and large, he was probably one of the best goalkeepers consistently in this season just gone by for QPR. Especially in that first half of the season, we maybe didn't give him enough credit at the time because QPR were a little bit lackadaisical at the time. You know, they weren't completely firing on all cylinders, and he was the one at the time really keeping the scoreline down. After January onwards, the team seemed to click a little bit, and everyone else sort of rose up to his level, as it were. For Reading, I think there's quite a few players that are in need of an upgrade. I myself have gone for Michael Elise, obviously in the end being named the Championship Young Player of the Season, and I think deservedly so. He's been absolutely fantastic in this season just gone by for Reading. His creative stats were wonderful this season, but just to actually watch the player, these can be quite few and far between at times, but you watch a player like Elise and you just think to yourself, okay, he's got it. You know, it's a question whether he'll actually be at Reading going into next season, because there has obviously already been a bunch of interest in him, but yeah, he's someone who you do tip to go all the way to the top. And then we get to Sheffield United. Who deserves an upgrade for Sheffield United? Who deserves an upgrade for Sheffield United? Keane Bryan? Maybe? I don't know, Sheffield United fans, you'll have to let me know down below, because I'm scraping the barrel for an upgrade from your club after the season you've just had. Stoke City, we're going for Tyrese Campbell. Now, I'm worried that EA won't give Campbell the deserved upgrade that he is due because of the injury that kept him out for the majority of this season. But even in the relatively limited sample size of matches that we saw Campbell in this previous season, he is a top-end Championship player already at the age he is. You know, he was carrying Stoke in those early matches in the season. I think his rating on FIFA should reflect that. He's way better than a 67 rated. With Swansea City, I'm going for Ben Cabango. There were a few players who I could have picked out from this Swansea squad, but Cabango only being 62 rated, he's more than deserving of an upgrade to that. I've put him up by 9 ratings up to a 71. A little bit disappointed that we've not seen him in action for Wales in the Euros, actually, because he's coming off the back of a really good season with Swansea, and at the age he is, he's another one who's only going to go on and get better. And then finishing it off with West Brom, we are going for the obvious pick here, which is Matheus Pereira, already one of West Brom's highest rated players at 76 rated, but after the season he's just had in the Premier League, I think that's deserved of a bit of a bump up even to that. I bumped him up by 2 to a 78. He's proved that he can cut it at Premier League level. We're still waiting to see what the future holds for Pereira. But over these last 2 seasons especially, West Brom fans have been very fortunate to see Pereira at his sparkling best at times. But guys, there we have it. There was one player from every Championship club who I think deserves an upgrade heading into FIFA 22. Do you agree with my picks from your club? Let me know down below. Who do you think is also in need of an upgrade heading into FIFA 22? And if you'd like to see me do this for one player from your club who I think deserves a downgrade going into FIFA 22, make sure to get this video up to 300 likes. But apart from that, thanks for watching, guys. If you are new around here, make sure to stick around and subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.